you to know who also was on the COBRA.
I'm going to
Because
call the
they-
meeting to order. Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you, George.
The date is May 18th, 2017. The time is 6:30 PM.
Did you roll call?
Yes. David Champy II,
Present.
Rob Collins,
Here.
Geary Ciccarone, Ed Comeau,
Here.
Stephen Bailey, Bill Zadie,
Present.
Rick Charette, Dianne Smith, Tim Strauss.
Here.
So we have enough for a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Bill is an alternate, correct?
No.
Tim's the alternate, you're a member, so that's right, I get them mixed up, sorry. Tim, would you sit on the board tonight?
Yes.
Thank you. Apologize, Bill.
Oh, that's fine.
Any public comments? Announcements and correspondence mail. Received an email from Jeff Greenhill at 3 Moose Mountain Road. This is a gentleman that came to us several months back talking about subdividing 2 acres off his property on the corner of Moose Mountain and Governor's Road. At the time, we gave him some paperwork for the process, and the board stated that some of the items could be waived. So he's requesting an appointment to meet with us over the paperwork to determine exactly which items on the list will be required, and is asking if we're available next Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to discuss. And this was sent Wednesday, so hopefully he meant next Thursday, which 5:25, 8:30 a.m. is what he's requesting. What I'd like to do is I'll follow up with him on an email, George.
Okay. Would you like me to put that on the agenda?
Yes, please. Is anybody else available to meet Thursday at 8:30 a.m. on the 25th?
I can do that. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would suggest that unless there's a good reason, you should come to one of our regularly scheduled meetings. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a reason why that doesn't work for him.
I'm wondering what his time schedule is. It might come down to that. So let me email him first and ask him if he'd be willing to do that.
Because I think that's easier for us and the public
Yep.
that might want to understand what's going on.
I'll follow up with him. We have a Public Works magazine here. Anybody's interested? George will have that. And we have a dues from Stratford Regional Planning. This is an invoice, which each year we do not typically pay. And if we're interested in paying this year, then I think we should vote on it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we not pay and that we respond to that effect with, I think that usually they send a letter that we can sign and saying that we're not going to pay. My motion is that we not pay and that we inform them of that.
Second? Do I have a second?
I thought you made the motion and you seconded it.
Do I have a second? Sorry. I was
Yes,
looking for somebody else.
yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Tim?
Who's it again?
Stratford Regional Planning?
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
So just a little bit of background,
Please.
because we've got new members.
Right.
According to the RSAs, every planning board has to be a member of a regional planning commission. We are a member of Stratford Regional Planning Commission. As a member, we get a vote, and we've got
Two.
Well, we have 2 representatives.
Correct. I'm considering an alternate right now, and Dianne Smith is the other.
Okay, so we can go there, we can participate in their meetings and vote on stuff. They also have this idea of paying members, and if we pay the invoice, then we get, I think, another representative, right? Something like that, and so we have a little bit larger voice, and we help support their, whatever it is they're doing. We, as of a few years ago, decided that the value wasn't there for how much money they were asking for. I'm not sure how much they're asking for this year, but in the past it was like $800.
Yep. 834.55.
You know, because we just don't use any of their services. And we can also, if we need to, contract for something if we do need it. So that's sort of the background, is that, you know, I think, is that fair? Is that, I don't know, maybe you want to add some more color.
Sure. The other, I don't know if you know anything about what a regional planning commission is, but within the metropolitan planning organization, as part of the transportation from the federal government, they had to form these metropolitan planning organizations in order so the public could be involved in transportation planning. So that's why they formed. But then the state came in and used basically the same structure and added a few other things to do regional planning, regional impact items, economic development. So there's many different aspects of Stratford Regional. And then there's a offshoot, which is a technical advisory committee, which also does transportation outsourcing, transportation items. And that's what that does. But I mean, our town, I believe Wakefield just voted not to pay also because they don't use them. And like Rob said, if we needed to use them for something, we could go to them and ask them, you know, we need some, print out some maps, or we need some specific things.
Sure. So just to interrupt, just for formality, I want to make sure that we have our alternate and our member sworn in. Have you been sworn in?
Yes.
And you've been
I have
sworn in?
also.
Okay, just want to make sure before we vote on it that everybody's been sworn in.
Yes.
Okay, good call. So, any further discussion? We all aware what the motion is? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Since we're already still on the subject of Stratford Regional Planning Commission, I'm going to be contacting them for 3 more of these planning books for our members. And of course, that's going to have some cost to it. So I just want to make you aware of that so we can understand it will be a bill coming
Okay,
for that.
I think we had budgeted for that, so we should be all set. So one of the things that I noticed is this is the letter that we were discussing earlier of denial of, let's say, refraining from making the payment, and it is addressed to somebody else. If there's any issue with me signing this.
It's addressed to Rich Zacher,
Right.
town of Brookfield. I think it's not a problem for you to sign it.
Okay. I'll make sure I'm not
I mean,
stepping on his toes.
Yes.
Rich, would you mind if I sign this? Thank you.
Did you go to the planning board or the selectmen?
It just went to the Brookfield Town Office, Town Administrator.
Administrator.
we don't have one of those. We don't have one of those.
George, if you can mail this back to them. Thank you. Review and possible approval of the April 20th, 2017 meeting minutes. get a motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of April 28th, 2017 as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Abstain, I was never opposed.
Okay. Item 7, new business. Review the amended rules and procedures. So, George, this is the updated copy?
Yes,
And this was the change for the RSA that we just reviewed from the meeting minutes of April 20th.
that is correct. So,
Yes.
did you want me to go over that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the motion was in 3.2 and 3.3 to change 673.6 to 673.12. You'll notice in the last paragraph of 3.2, which is at the top of the page, just above 3.3, it says 673.12. Also, in the third sentence of 3.3, the Board of Selectmen may appoint an alternate ex officio to serve the place of the ex officio when a person is not present pursuant to RSA 673.12, paragraph 3. The other page, which is at the bottom, says page 19 and 20. Number 15 under 21.2. This, the amending, should the board agree that this is a proper amendment to the rules of procedure, and then we'll have to get it certified by the town clerk. And those are the only changes.
I'm just trying to understand why we had referred to 673.6 in paragraph 3.3 and then later 673.12, but I understand it's after reading the...
Yeah, I was just double checking
Yeah.
those other RSA references.
Yes, I actually read the RSA, and the first reference in 3.3 does not apply to what the motion was.
Correct. But it does match with this year.
So George, assuming that we approve this, you've changed the May 18th date to today's date?
That's correct.
Is that your plan? Okay.
Yes.
I can look it up exactly where it is, but the rules of procedure state, I think, something like we have to have this in front of the member 10 days ahead. Did that, George, did you email this out to us?
Yes, I did. Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't think I did. No, sorry.
Okay, so next meeting, I think we can't approve this meeting. I think that if this is the first time we've seen this, then the 10 days is starting now, I think. Our rules of procedure, you should read the rules of procedure. It's not a very interesting read, but it's got some good stuff in there. Anyway, we can't just change our rules on the fly. Basically, we have to make sure that the members have a chance to see the proposed changes at least 10 days ahead of a vote to change it. The idea being that the 4 of us, or whatever, 5 of us today can't just say, oh, let's change the rules and do something, go rogue or something like that. So,
Okay, George, can you put this back onto the agenda for next month?
Yes. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm also going to change the date accordingly too.
Yes, please. And can you email a copy to all members?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is emailing it sufficient, or does it have to be in hand? So how do you know if it goes to email and somebody didn't look at it, then how are you supposed to,
I think a couple of years ago, we had this question, and then I think we decided the board at that time decided that email was okay. So I'm not sure. Did you just look?
Well, I know that it doesn't say email. Let me check it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know we had the discussion, and I know that I just don't know whether we just decided that was our interpretation of it at the time, or.
I thought it was a discussion. I don't think anything changed in the language.
Because I'm always thinking that someone could come in and say, oh, I didn't get the email.
Right.
And then now we're stuck again waiting another.
So, page 19 of 20, amendments. Oh, it's the second page of the proposed changes, so everyone should have a copy of it. It says printed copy, such amendments. It's 1 week, not 10 days, I misspoke.
I'm just remembering printed because that way you know they got it. I mean, do people use return request anymore on emails, where you have to basically click a box saying that you received it?
I get it all the time at the office.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we could do something like that rather than just a thought.
But they can open the email, but not necessarily open the attachment. And you get a notification stating they've opened the email. They might not look at the attachment, and then they can say they never opened it.
Yeah, we had this problem at the delegation meetings. The RSA states that all delegation members are to be mailed the meeting date and time of the meeting. And that's the official mailing. But they were emailing and they never mailed anything. So they had to amend the RSA instead of going back in. So it's just a detail.
So, we might want to decide how we want to have the notification be done. We might want to decide to change it.
Right.
We've got a printed copy for anyone who came to the meeting. It does say, provided that a printed copy of such amendments is in the hands of each member 1 week or more immediately preceding the meeting. So, that's really specific, but I'm not sure that we want to pay George to chase people down and stick a piece of paper in their hands. And
Well, the other option is to still email it, but put something in the email that states to respond back that they've read the attachment. Then you have something back from them.
yeah, I think that the idea of this, the spirit of it, is to not let the board run amok without, everyone having a voice and not being caught by surprise, whatever, right? And so, I'm not sure the right way to achieve that, but I think that's what the spirit is. And this is very specific. I'm not sure it's worth spending a lot of money to meet the letter of this. I would propose that this time, we email it, and at next month's meeting, we can decide whether that was sufficient notice for the members that are there to vote on it. It was on this month's agenda. Presumably everyone had a shot at seeing that and watched the video. I don't know. I mean, and this particular change is not objectionable, but we may want to revisit how we, to amend the amendment procedure. Just so we can follow the rules, but have them be reasonable.
I'd agree with that.
Couldn't we amend this tonight? Or could we just start the amendment tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have proposed language?
Well, we would have to have a discussion about it emailing enough.
We have had a member, very briefly, we had a member who didn't have email. We also have a member who doesn't have all his hands. So putting in, I don't know, this is, what happened, I don't know, anyway. So I think that, my feeling would be that emailing it is fine. I think that if it, I don't know.
I think in today's age, people have access to their email. And I think that should be a sufficient way to communicate information. Email is now considered an agreement between two people. If you send an email, you can actually have a legal document that is an agreement between two people through email. So I don't see why we couldn't put the wording, just would have to figure out what the wording would be, to state that people are notified and provided a copy via email or a printed copy.
Printed / electronic copy.
Or we could, so, I'm not sure, I can't remember a time when we had an urgent need to change the rules of procedure.
No, I can't think of one either.
We could, it slows things down, but we could just make it so that, have it say that, the proposed amendment has to be presented at a meeting, and then the following regularly scheduled meeting, it can be voted on. Sort of much in the same way that we, for a vacancy, right? We announce a vacancy in one meeting, and then we can fill it in the next meeting.
Is there anything in the RSAs that we should review considering amendments to make sure that we're covering all bases for that?
It's a fair question. I don't. So it says that these rules are adopted under 676:1. I guess that'd be a start books. Yeah, method of adopting rules of procedure. The requirements for rules of procedure are really, really thin.
Yes.
So we have full latitude to do whatever we want.
That's what it appears to be here.
I mean, I was-
Well, it says rules of procedure shall be adopted at a regular meeting of the board. And should be placed on file with city, town, village, district clerk or clerk for the county commissioners for public inspection.
But there isn't anything in the RSA that says that you have to hand someone a printed copy.
It does not say
So
that.
as long as if we're changing that in our amendment, or suggesting that change in the rules of procedure for amendments, we just make sure that we're covering all bases, so.
Yep.
Looks like we have the ability to do that.
I think it should just say printed or electronic copy, just add or electronic copy.
Should be and, or.
Or. Printed or. But I'm not an attorney.
George, can you add that to the wording under 21(1)? To say that the rules of procedure may be amended by a vote of majority of all the regular members of the board, provided that a printed or an electronic copy of such amendment is in the hands of each member 1 week or more immediately preceding the meeting in which the vote is to be taken. So just adding those
Can
four words.
I make a,
Yeah, change.
Sure.
so, I'm thinking change in the hands of to provided to. So it reads, such amendments, copy of such amendments is provided to each member. Sort of leaves open how it's provided, but,
I like that better.
and then I would also suggest where it says each member, change that to say each member and alternate. And then one more question I've got. 676:1 says rules of procedure shall be adopted at a regular meeting of the board. I'm not sure if that means the initial adoption or adopting amendments. I'm not sure, so, I mean, I guess my question would be, if our interpretation is, or we want to play it safe, to do it only at a regular meeting, which I don't think would be a problem, then just proceed, and then where it says 1 week or more immediately preceding the regularly scheduled meeting at which, or, I mean, I don't know if we need to do that or not, but,
Well, what if there was something that you needed to get in sooner than 4 weeks, and we wanted to put it in front of the board in a week, and then have a special meeting to review it?
right, so does 676:1 allow that? That's my question. I could interpret it, I don't know.
Well, we could leave it like this and discuss it with the other members when it comes up for review. Or do you want to change it and then discuss it then?
I think it's a pretty simple change.
Which?
To the regular scheduled meetings, or just to leave it as immediately preceding the meeting?
Probably next regular, immediately preceding.
easy to say just prior to the next regular meeting. Do you want to try to work on the language here? Read it the way you suggested? I can take a stab at it if you want.
Well, well, here's what I would, I mean, I may want to clean up the immediately preceding, but these rules of procedure may be amended by vote of the majority of all regular members of the board, provided that a printed or electronic copy of such amendments is provided to each member and alternate 1 week or more prior to the next regularly scheduled meeting at which the vote is to be taken. Do you get that, George?
I'm pretty sure.
I can try it again if you want, or do you want to read it back?
Yeah, I'd like to take a stab at it and read it back. So, okay, so, these rules of procedure may be amended by vote of majority of all regular members of the board, provided that a printed or electronic copy of such amendments is in the hands of each member 1 week or more immediately.
Each member and alternate.
Okay, and alternate. Member. And alternate, or alternate?
And alternate.
Thank you.
And instead of in the hands, we are crossing out in the hands and provided to.
In the hands of.
Yes, in the hands of, and put provided to each member and alternate.
Okay. All right. And let's see. Okay, and each member and alternate 1 week or more prior, is that correct?
Prior to.
Prior to the regular meeting at which the vote is to be taken. Is that correct?
We had regular scheduled meeting,
Okay.
if that
Well, I
matters.
think that the RSA actually uses the term regular meeting,
Okay,
so I think that's not a bad, not a bad thing.
so
So the,
let's use that.
prior to the regular meeting, and then the rest stays the same, at which the vote is to be taken.
So George, you'll make that change
Yes.
in the document and we can review it at the next meeting.
And then for possible approval, the following meeting.
Possible approval following meeting. Right, because right now it's gotta be in the hands, so we can't do it electronically, correct?
I play it safe, I don't know.
Yeah, let's,
Not that I think this is gonna be very controversial, but I'm happy to make that a motion.
can you make that a motion?
I'll second.
So George, just to be clear, the main, Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend the language of section 21.1, the first sentence to read, and then George, it's just what we just went through. And that's my motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Is everyone clear what the language is? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
So that motion just made it be the proposed rules of procedure.
Correct.
We still haven't changed the
We
rules.
haven't changed it, we're proposing it for the next meeting, we'll review it. Next on the agenda for tonight is review of cell tower and wind energy regulations. So I did review our zoning and also reviewed the state RSA, chapter 12, section 12, K1 through K11. and it's pretty lengthy.
Does it happen to be in the blue book?
I did not find it in the Blue Book. I actually had to go on to the New Hampshire government website.
So that you're talking about cell towers right now? Is that what we're?
Yes, it is. So we are on page 13, 12K1. It's chapter 12, deployment of personal wireless service facilities. And from what I did is I took the current zoning and went through the RSA to compare what we had in our current zoning. The interesting thing in the RSA is it says, except as provided in RSA 12K10 and RSA 12K11, nothing in this chapter shall be construed as altering any municipal zoning ordinance. And this chapter itself shall not be construed as a zoning ordinance. So it looks like the importance of this RSA is RSA K 12K10 and RSA 12K11.
I'm sorry, where does it say that, where does it have that caveat?
So
K10, I think,
But which one refers to? Oh, okay, I see, it's, so it's
Roman
12K1.
numeral 6. Correct.
Okay, so the only ones we actually have to look at are 12K10 and 11.
Correct. So 12K10 refers to limitations on the application. And so 12K10 is application review and 12K11 is limitations on application. So I did also find that there was a court case between an unmentioned cellular company and the city of Franklin, New Hampshire. And one of the important things that we need to take into consideration with regard to our zoning is documentation of anything regarding the application. There were some things that were not disclosed to the cellular company. That was decided by the zoning board. It was later brought up in the court case, and what happened is the cellular company was not able to provide the information that they needed in advance. So it's, try to find the court case. So the court case is number 05CV266JM. And it basically speaks about reviewing the application process and keeping good documentation.
Mr. Chairman, since I'm also still in the middle of reviewing the changes to the RSAs in the planning book, I don't recall, but when was the court case? What date was it? And my question would be is, has it yet changed the existing RSAs?
That's a good question. I had the date written down. I see the file.
Because I don't see any changes to that section in the affected by 2016 legislation.
I don't think that this court case was a cause for a change of the RSA. But what it did do is it made a point to talk about the court case, and it says it illustrates the importance for the land use boards to keep detailed records of their proceedings, including written decisions that are clear and that are set forth the rationale used by the board to reach these conclusions. And the Telecommunication Act of 1996 provides that any local land use board decision to deny a request for a wireless facility must be in writing and supported by substantial evidence contained in the written record. So the concern was the town did not provide that information. They didn't keep good records.
But they denied, is that what happened?
Yes, they denied the application, and there was no grounds for them to deny it. So that's just something that we need to take into consideration. If we have anything like that, we need to keep this documented clearly.
So what was the outcome of that case? They got to build it?
They did.
So 12K10, if I'm reading this properly, basically says that we have to follow exactly the application process that's laid out here.
Correct.
So we can't have something different. It has to be this process. It has, timeframes and everything else.
Correct.
And then 12K11 is a list of things that we are not allowed to do as part of that application process.
Correct.
And both of these start with, in order to ensure uniformity across New Hampshire with respect to the consideration, blah, 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 right? So, and we have, I don't know, a bunch of pages, right, related to this.
It starts on page 1456. 1456 for the zone.
I've got 13 of 55. Are you out of date? Are you in the 2016 zoning or the 2017 zoning?
When's that finished? 2015?
Dude, you're so stale. So,
Thank you.
so it's 13 through 23. The first half of 23 is personal wireless service facilities. So unless there's something else in the RSAs, I don't think we're required to have 10 pages in our zoning.
I don't believe so. I think we can-
Did you see anything that requires us to allow? Not that I'm suggesting that we disallow them, but I'm just, did you see anything that requires us to allow cell towers?
in the RSA.
Yeah.
I did not see anything that requires us to.
So we could go anywhere from saying that they're not allowed use to having it be just refer to the two RSAs that we're required to follow. Basically say they're allowed and you follow this process. Or we could have a list of limitations or conditions. Can't be taller than X, or can't be setbacks, blah. I know that all of that is in that 10 pages, but wondering whether we can't get rid of a bunch of that boilerplate that we got from somebody some time ago, and boil it down to what we really care about.
Mr. Chairman, do the town that had the issue, is there a way perhaps we could get a copy of what their ordinance looks like?
Yes. it's
Because
on-
obviously, if they already went through it, why not just look at what they came up with and compare it?
They do have their zoning online. So unfortunately, I didn't print out their 52-page zoning. So,
was they basically denied the application, but didn't follow their own rules
Correct.
of denial.
You know, is it planning board or ZBA? Do you know off the top of your head?
Land use board.
No, that's both, so.
So I think we can condense what we have currently for our wireless service in our zoning. Rich?
So the question I'm wrestling is, what's the board's position? Do you want to allow them, or do you want to exclude them? Before you get into the minutia, what's the philosophy? Are they allowed, or are they not allowed?
I guess the question would be, what do the people want?
That's a good question.
Well, they're the ones that'll vote, right?
Right.
They'll decide. We don't get, we don't get to decide that.
So my assumption is the people probably already voted on what's in here for heights and setbacks and better.
Yes,
Yeah.
years ago, right?
Correct.
Years ago.
And I guarantee probably not a single person that voted yes or no at that time read these 10 pages without falling asleep halfway through.
No, I think they did. Aren't you here?
When was it voted on, do you know? How
Well, I don't
long-
know.
How long ago?
I have no idea.
How long have you been around?
Well, I'm pretty old. I've been here over 10 years, before that. I think they were just coming into existence, and people were
Right.
afraid of the humongous
People didn't
towers.
have them, didn't have cell phones.
That's right. And they didn't know what they looked like. Everybody visualized this
Right.
humongous,
Right,
right? Therefore, protect ourselves. Today, people want service,
right,
I think. That's my opinion.
right.
Well, and this isn't, Matt.
Go ahead.
And this isn't only about, cell towers or cell service, this is also about the new wave of internet service that will be wireless too, so.
Wireless, that's right.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of hype about 5G, but, I just don't know what, I haven't really kept up on the technology of what they're proposing. As, I mean,
It's a very high frequency, which means you need a lot of towers because you get high attenuation. It's very short wavelength.
right, so we might,
You need a lot of them if you're gonna get 5G. They would say,
but maybe they're trying to cover smaller areas, they don't need to be 200 feet tall.
could be, absolutely. Could be.
So my guess would be that nobody's gonna wanna spend the money to build a new, sort of old school cell tower in town. Because we've got, in most places, except for your house, we've got good coverage, right?
That's all we know of so far.
Now, the other issue is, we're gonna have a presenter, I believe, soon, that's gonna talk about cell tower placement or tower placement that they need for emergency services.
But not received anything back from them.
Oh, I thought it was already set up that they were going to be here. But we would need to know, we would need to have this, cleared up, so if he says, that they want to put the towers in so many different spots, we have to know, this ordinance is gonna have to. And does emergency services supersede the ordinances? I have a lot of questions about that.
Well, I think even if our zoning restricted it so much that they couldn't build the tower that they need, they can go to the ZBA.
Correct.
If they have to follow our zoning, they can go to the ZBA and get a variance, I think. Anybody can. So if we think it's a one-off thing, we shouldn't be too worried about not allowing it in the zoning, because it's a straightforward process.
In section 5A, it speaks to the state saying that they are encouraging the expansion of the broadband and personal wireless services across the state. They encourage the usage of current sites as technology advances. So,
Yeah, I mean, we could take the position that, at least with Verizon, we've got good enough coverage in town that we don't want any new, the benefit would be small enough that we don't want new towers built. And we could just say they're not allowed. People could choose to vote for an amendment that would say that they're not allowed in town. And then if technology changed and it's like, oh, we need more towers closer together, but there's, lower or something like that, we could always amend the zoning again to allow whatever that new technology is, without allowing something that's gonna be 200 feet tall on the ridge of Moose Mountain or something.
Yeah, so I would definitely like to see a sample. A sample that allows, and see what it looks like, see how how it differs from ours.
George, is it possible that you could print out a copy or email a copy to each member to review?
Yes.
And that would be Franklin, New Hampshire.
The whole zoning ordinance or just the?
Just regards to the wireless communication. The whole zone, it'd be electronic, it's a PDF, but I think you'd probably have to send the whole thing as a PDF. You won't be able to trim the fat.
Yeah,
Unless you have a Adobe Writer, you can start
I don't.
cutting pages out of it. So as far as I could tell, when I went through our zoning and I compared it with what we have in the RSA, I didn't see anything that was outstanding that appeared to me that we're not following the RSA.
Mr. Chairman, does this ordinance cover the, like ham radio wireless too? Those types of antennas?
I would say it does because it speaks with wireless communication and towers. It doesn't speak specifically to cell towers.
I think you'd have to look at the Telecommunications Act of 1996 and see what that covers, because it seems like that
Where do you read
Article 7, Personal Wireless Services, A, in purpose and intent, the first sentence. It is the express purpose of this article to permit carriers to locate personal wireless service facilities to the extent required by the Telecommunications Act of 1996 within the town of Brookfield. That actually seems to imply that maybe Telecommunications Act of 1996 maybe requires us to allow that. I don't know.
I think we should review that for the next meeting.
Also, Stratford Regional Planning Commission came out with a broadband infrastructure study of some kind. I believe it's still on their website, which could shine some light on placement throughout the state and what new requirements are. Or just obviously, they helped with the encouragement language, because broadband is something the state is lacking. So I'll bring a copy of that in. That's it.
Thank you, Ed.
If you remember, they came to a selectmen's meeting
Yes, it is.
and told us we had excellent coverage.
I wouldn't use the word excellent, it just meant we had coverage.
Okay. Broad, acceptable, whatever acceptable is coverage. And we know that's not true. We know there's places in town where there's not even DSL.
What's DSL?
Here, what is DSL?
Come to my house, you can try it out if you want. Okay, so next meeting, George, we should all have a copy of that. And then also, I would suggest we look into the Telecommunication Act of 1996 and see what exact towers they're referring to, if it also refers to ham towers. It'd be good to know what this encompasses versus our, one thought of cell towers and internet.
And we should be prepared because the future's here. And just, in the near future, they're gonna come to the meeting and they're gonna ask, do we wanna do this? And should know.
So I think that somewhere we've got a limit on structures being 35 feet above ground level.
I think it was 30 feet above the tree level.
No, just normal structures,
Okay.
I think. And obviously, the towers are allowed to be taller than that. And so I think one thing we'd have to think about is if we said we're not gonna allow these at all, what happens with if somebody does have has or wants a ham thing that they want it to be 75 feet tall or whatever. Are we okay with prohibiting that, or should we make sure that we allow things like, truly things that for the, homeowners use versus a carrier or something, anyway.
I think it's important if people want to do something on their own land, that they should have the ability to do that as long as they're not infringing their rights on someone else's privacy or rights. And that's what we're referring to in a lot of these zoning is setbacks and fall zones and making sure that if a tower falls down, you're not gonna take your neighbor's horse out or something.
Yep.
In very densely populated areas like Manchester and Concord, there's a battle going on with these antennas to the point where in some smaller towns or condensed towns, they want to put the towers inside, let's say, first aid and firehouses, and they're refusing to let them do that because they're worried about the health issues. So there is a big outcry that these towers and the frequencies are dangerous. I don't know what the science is behind it, but that is the effect of some people in congested areas not wanting these towers anywhere. But, we have large open spaces, so our ordinance, that's why I wanted to compare it. And I don't know, is Franklin very rural or is it condensed? I don't know.
There are some areas that are pretty condensed.
Albany's about the same size as we are.
Yeah.
Is that what you said, Albany? Yeah, I'll look around at some of the other zoning in more rural areas because, we're not gonna look at a zoning ordinance for wireless communication from Manchester. It should be another rural type area.
Yeah, I looked at Ashland, I think, and I compared Ashland to ours, and they're almost boilerplate. And I kind of wonder if we ended up taking somewhere that they took somewhere and it's kind of grown from there, and that's why there's so many commonalities between our zoning and their zoning with telecommunication. Not sure if they...
I'm sure nobody in town sat down and wrote this from scratch.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Don't really want to start with this, but we may want to think about whether it's worth spending a little bit of money with the lawyer, asking what we need, what we ought to have, and what the issues are, if we try to slim this down, if any. I mean, that might be relatively expensive, just, if it's a quick email. But But I think where we started a couple minutes ago is what do we want to have here, you know?
Right.
What do we want to allow, I think is maybe the place to start.
Yeah, I don't think we're at the point we can put an email together yet for the attorney. I think we need to determine what we want and understand what the Telecommunication Act is and what this is referring to.
Yep.
Before we can put that together. So for now, we'll put this discussion aside until the next meeting, and we'll have some more data. Hopefully we can come up with some sort of verbiage for an email to the attorney. And
I just want to add just one thing before we move on, regarding, it seems that the gist of this is looking at licensed wireless carriers, that this is kind of becoming ground rules for, not so much personal ham radio operator. I think the gist of this is that when they talk about towers in here and the design, they're referring to a licensed provider of personal wireless services, which has to be licensed with the FCC.
what section are you in there, Tim?
I was looking at in the definitions on page 14, 12, and then I looked over on the following page to K3.
So you're looking at definition 22, personal wireless service facility.
Yes, and which led me kind of to the next page where section wireless carriers doing business in the state. And then putting K3, section 4, and make reference to personal wireless service facility has to be built. They have to have a license from the FCC demonstrating its authority to provide personal wireless services in that geographical area where the PWSF is located.
So that would not apply, even though you need to have an FCC license to be a ham operator, you're not a licensed wireless service provider. So I think that Ed's question regarding ham radios and personal radio equipment, that answers that question there. Thank you for that, Tim.
(12K:8) had said the OEP had to create a model ordinance, which is probably what we've got.
Which one was that again?
12K:8,
Okay, got it right here.
model ordinances and guidance.
It'd be interesting to look into the other towns and see if they have the boilerplate on their zoning as well. We'll see that when we look at Franklin's as well. If anybody wants to do any other homework and check out other zoning in other towns. George, you got any questions about what we're gonna do for next meeting regarding telecommunication? Okay. We also have to move on to the next subject. So the other discussion point was wind energy regulations. for old business. One of the things that I had seen regarding our zoning is that we speak to one type of wind energy in our zoning, which is small wind energy systems. I don't know where I found that. That was on page 23 of 55, Article 8, small wind energy systems. Let's see, the RSA is 674:63. Interestingly enough, I didn't see where we had talked anywhere in our zoning regarding large wind energy systems.
But a large wind farm or any kind of large over 100 kilowatt turbine required to go through Federal Energy Regulatory Commission approval.
Well, given that ours, as far as I know, our zoning does not allow some wind energy systems that are not small wind energy systems,
That's what it appears, yes.
then you can't put anything over 100 kilowatts here in town without going to the ZBA. I think that's a good thing.
That was the gist I got from our zoning, is that we did not include large wind energy
Right.
systems.
Right. So you think that's a
So,
problem, or you think that's
I
good?
don't think that's a problem.
Okay. So RSA 674:63 in the first paragraph says, ordinances or regulations adopted by municipalities to regulate the installation and operation of small wind energy systems shall not unreasonably limit such installations or unreasonably hinder the performance of such installations. And then it lists what would be considered unreasonable. 5 unreasonable limits or hindrances. So I think that says that we have to allow small wind energy systems. We can't just not allow them. That's the way I read that, at least.
Correct. Because we can't have unreasonable expectations for somebody installing one.
Yep.
So I guess my only concern with regard to large wind energy systems is it's very similar to another current litigation that I'm aware of with regards to solar structures. Is the town zoning did not include any verbiage regarding the solar and has gone into litigation now because it's affecting other people in the town. So my concern is we don't mention anything in our zoning regarding large wind energy systems. So that could be an open door for a company to come in and propose putting wind towers up on top of Moose Mountain.
So we have permissive zoning here. The style that our zoning is written in is permissive, and which basically means that only things that are expressly allowed are allowed, and everything else is prohibited. So, and the courts have been pretty consistent with interpreting zoning ordinances in that way. That what they're written in the style of ours would, which is a list of things that you're allowed to do. Where the gray areas are, and there are, of course, there are gray areas because we've got a legal system, are all around what's normal, what's like in a normal use in conjunction with some use that is listed, right? I mean, is having a landing strip, something that you'd have as part of a residence? Right, we don't say you can have a landing strip. And some other, I don't remember which town it was, there was some lawsuit where some guy wanted to put a landing strip and they said they couldn't. And he's like, well, I've got a house and residences can have landing strips. And I don't remember which way it came out, but anyway, there are gray areas, certainly gray areas. Who's the tree farm wedding people? Is it
In
Henniker? Right, there's another example that was in the news a lot in the last couple of years, where they were, I don't remember exactly the facts of the case, they were arguing that they should be able to do weddings because they had a tree farm.
And it was,
And the wedding
agritourism.
Yeah, and the zoning didn't allow for agritourism, so I think they
No, it
closed that.
allowed agritourism, but they didn't consider that having weddings at a tree farm was the use of agritourism. And it was having weddings, it wasn't, that's what the argument was.
Yeah, anyway, there are gray areas still, but I don't think that unless the RSAs say that, if we don't say that they're allowed everywhere, or we have to allow them, I don't think that we're gonna be forced to have large wind energy systems.
I don't remember seeing it in the RSA that says that you have to allow it. Just that was the one thought in my head was regarding some other litigation that's going on that was concerning.
Yeah, that's a question we can ask the attorney, put on the list.
I thought we changed the zoning a couple of years ago to say the maximum size that was used could be something like 20. Was it 20 we had when we went to 100?
Yeah, the attorney, when she reviewed the zoning, that was one of the things that she said we couldn't limit it below,
Some number.
yeah, we were keeping it too small.
That's right. So we went to 20, we went to 100. It should be in the zoning, and that should deal with the mega systems.
Right, and basically the 100 comes from the state's definition of small wind energy systems.
Right.
Her point was that was a definition we couldn't just
Yes.
magically redefine.
Yes.
Because
But
we have to allow what they say.
Up to that limit.
Yeah, they say we have to allow someplace in town small wind energy systems, and that goes up to 100 kilowatts. We basically were limiting to 25 or whatever the number was, and so therefore that would be considered a reasonable limitation, and therefore not legal. We don't have to allow them everywhere in town. We'd have to be allowed someplace. So we could create an overlay district if we wanted them only in certain areas. We've got lots of options open to us if we wanted to allow them but limit them, or if there are some areas where we don't think that they're appropriate.
I think it'd be hard pressed to try to limit renewable resources. The state speaks very clearly about being in full support of the consideration for renewable energy. And there are a lot of, one of the things I was looking up as well was solar considerations. And they speak specifically to municipalities allowing windmills and solar energy, wind turbines, I guess you call it. So I think it would be pretty hard to write anything into the zoning or suggested writing into the zoning that would limit what we could do for that.
Sorry. Could you limit the size of the lot? Say a lot has to be X number of acres before you put up a windmill or a solar panel or something else that might be large? And you can try to say, if it's back, if you got 10 acres in this back, who cares?
You can, because it does refer to setbacks.
If you got a quarter-acre lot and you put the wind tower right up front, but you got a quarter-acre, that might be more.
Yeah.
It also says limit of 55 decibels or something, that it has to have on the
Right.
property line, so there are
Still pretty
limits.
loud.
Well, the wind tip speed of a large wind energy is 100 miles an hour. If you're talking a blade that's the size of a 747, basically, the blade span is the length of a 747. So wind tip speed calculation is 100 miles an hour.
Wasn't there
That's a lot
a
of noise.
town recently that wrestled with this issue? Where a company wanted to come in and put these huge towers up
But in the western part of the state, it was for energy going to Vermont.
One other consideration may be flicker, light flicker.
And we actually talked about that, I believe, in our
See that?
small wind energy we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah, shadow flicker, they call it. Sound level's 55 decibels. So if you think that it's fine without covering the large wind energy, we can leave it as is.
Well, I think that's an easy question to include in an email to the attorney, right? If we don't mention large energy in our zoning, large wind energy systems, are they prohibited, which is what we think we want.
Do we even, is this area good for wind energy?
My house there is.
Well, one of the problems is you need to have close proximity to transmission lines. It's no good to have large-scale wind energy without any way of delivering it.
Yeah, you have to have the three wires on the poles or something, that's for.
Three-phase.
What's it called?
Three-phase.
And depending on the amount of power you're generating, you incur loss depending on the distance that you have to transmit it. So, I mean, one way to look at this is how far are we from the closest transmission lines, and then you have to figure out how you're gonna get the power to that. It may not be feasible for somebody to build large scale because they can't recoup that cost of generation.
Well, hopefully large scale won't come here.
Right. But that's what they have to think.
Yeah. But in terms of, I mean, right now, well, I'm not sure exactly how to read our zoning with regard to this, but, because it says that small wind energy systems are allowed, but like, for example, would they be allowed in the rec zone?
We don't limit it
Which-
to zones, do we?
Well, not in the language for the small wind energy systems, but the rec zone has a very specific set of, uses that are allowed, conditional, and prohibited. I don't think it's mentioned in any of those. But,
But what you said earlier, if it's not mentioned, then we're figuring that it's not allowed, right?
I don't know. If I just read the zoning, I'd probably interpret it as allowed everywhere, but it's a gray area. I mean, which we could certainly clean up. Either just make it explicit that it's allowed in all the zones, or which zones it's allowed in.
Right. Do we want to talk any more about wind energy, or do we want to try to get some information from our attorney as well about what we should be including in our zoning? Because I want to make a suggestion as well. One of the things I mentioned earlier was solar. And I think that should be something else that we should ask the attorney, because it's not in our zoning. Is it considered prohibited?
It is mentioned under the definition of structure, or something, one of the definitions mentions solar. I think, it's stuck in my head, I don't know.
Rich, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think when you talk to the attorney, she's gonna say, what do you wanna do? Do you wanna allow it, or do you want to exclude it? And based upon your position, she'll formulate an answer or a recommendation. But she can go either way. So what do you want? That's what she's gonna say to you.
So, definition BBB on page 4455, structures. Anything permanently affixed to the ground, including but is not limited to dwellings, accessory buildings such as garages, barns, and sheds, and accessory items such as windmills, in-ground pools, freestanding satellite and radio antenna, and freestanding solar panels.
Okay. So that would,
But can you put a solar panel on your roof? I don't know, but
Well, your house should have the setbacks, correct? Because when we speak to structures, we talk about
We have lots of
setbacks.
non-conforming lots, I don't know. What if the, you know, that makes it your roof taller than, however tall, 35 feet or whatever the your roof is allowed to be, I don't know. I mean, I think that if we want to address it, if there's something specific problem we want to, so I read this as that they're allowed as a structure, as an accessory building. It's basically as an accessory structure, so we're not completely silent on solar panels. But if we want to say that you have to provide screening from view from the right of way or whatever other condition you want to put on it, I think we should probably have a section in the zoning that addresses whatever conditions we want.
Yeah, I specifically don't want to put conditions on it. It's what we want to do for the best interest of the people is what my concern is the litigation that I'm aware of, the people that did it, that I think it's great that they did it. They want to be self-sufficient and have their own power.
Which town is it?
This is Wakefield. And they installed the system and it's affecting the abutters of the property.
Are we on solar now or wind?
We're talking solar,
How does that affect the neighbors?
block the view. So it's a pivoting tower that actually pivots as the sun moves. And it's actually in an area where their neighbor had a lake view, and now they don't see the lake when the tower's up.
Well, that sucks, but if that same person could have built a shed there, and that's,
Did they just go to the ZBA and get a variance for it? Or did they go to the ZBA?
I don't know the full ins and outs, I just know that this,
so, well,
They're huge panels,
yeah,
they're huge.
so as far as our zoning, in the ZBA, so Article 5 is ZBA. So for a variance, the applicant must satisfy each of the 5 requirements. First one is that denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship to applicant. Number 2, that no diminution of value of the surrounding properties would occur. 3, that proposed use would not be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance. 4, that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. And 5, that granting the variance would do substantial justice. I think that I don't know what Wakefield's situation is or whether it went through as a variance, but I think that in our town, if it was a variance, you'd have to show that you're not gonna hurt your neighbor's property values. And if your abutter can show that, or a neighbor can show that, something that variance that somebody's going for is gonna hurt their values, then the ZBA is not supposed to approve that variance. Doesn't mean they won't, but they're not supposed to. And I don't know if those 5 come from the RSA's or not. I think they do. So
They would have to do abutter notifications to the neighbors, and then the neighbors should have complained about that when
Only if there's an ordinance against it.
right.
If there's no ordinance, you can do what you like. You don't have to go to the ZBA or the planning board.
if you don't need a variance,
If you don't need a variance
Yes.
because the zoning says you can do it, do it.
right? That's what I said. So if they could build a shed there, then the view is just temporary. So
and that's why you mentioned the 35 feet structure height.
well, I don't mean that's just. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do we want to allow solar panels to go higher than that? I don't know. I don't think so, but
I don't think you need,
I mean, what if you built your house to 35 feet? Then now you can't put solar panels on unless they don't go above your peak. I don't know. But Tesla's now got the shingles that.
yeah.
Anyway,
So,
we just had somebody just went to the ZBA about putting solar panels in their setbacks, and I think they got approved, right?
That's right.
Here in town. So
did the ZBA refer to structure setbacks?
They use that definition, and it can be any more restrictive than the dwelling was. So they put it whatever it was, 25 feet from the street.
is it non-conforming lot because the house is, too close to the street. And so they jammed this giant solar array into, what, I don't know, they went into the side setback and the rear setback, I think.
Front setback from the street.
No, but not beyond where the house was.
That's right.
But I think they were in the side setback and the rear setback as well, if I
I don't know
recall.
about the rear. I know the side
No.
and the front.
You're shaking your head.
I think it's the side, front.
Side and front, okay. Anyway. So, because we don't get a lot of sun around here, you need a big array,
Right.
so.
Right.
And we do have some small lots. So,
All right, so we won't include any questions regarding that. We feel it's covered in our zoning regarding the solar and structures. And we'll,
well, unless we could, if we wanted to be explicit, we could list it as a, allowed accessory use, I guess.
Some of the comments I heard was, the zoning says you can't have your vehicles parked such that, trade vehicles parked such that you can see from the street. Yet you can allow zoning, allow solar panels, which are very large and some people don't think very attractive, to be placed so you can see it from the street without any blind to put up. Some of the feedbacks I heard about solar panels.
Yeah, and I don't think right now, what happens if, whoever owns Moose Mountain, the rec zone, decides that they want to put 600 acres of solar panels? Cover that slope, right? You see it from almost everywhere in town.
it's north side.
Yeah, if it's.
Yeah, the north side.
I don't have to point, but
If
I
it's on
don't.
the south side, it's be facing Middleton, that's New Durham, so we're not gonna see it there.
No, the slope does, the sun hits the slope, right? So-
It's not ideal.
I understand it's not ideal. But what if? right?
Hypothetically, yes.
Right, is that something that, how would we feel about that? Is that something we want to allow or not?
Well, it's a question of two different formats. If you have as a homeowner, you use, your roof it's in the proper aspect for solar collection, and you put panels on the roof like these folks out here on 109, which is very discreet. Or are you in a situation where you use your acreage to put out panels in an array because of placement? You can't go to that alternative. So it's there's a couple different methods of setting this up. And whether one's a little bit more offensive than the other, if you're looking at it something.
Sure, and also I don't think there's a limit on the size,
Sure.
right? Whereas like the small wind energy, you've got up to 100 kilowatts. Right, so I could imagine saying solar's allowed, but up to this size system or something like that.
Right.
Whatever size we decided was reasonable. So,
OEP put out a presentation back in 2016 that said solar consideration in the master plan and zoning. It's on newhampshire.gov OEP planning resources. So if you go onto their website, you can actually pull up that presentation. And one of the slides I actually printed out here, and it says, enabling state statutes for solar, smart solar PV planning. And it says, New Hampshire Solar Friendly enables statutes for municipal plans, zoning, and ordinances. And it talks about the RSA. So RSA 477 encourages the use of solar sky space easement. RSA 672:1 encourages planning and zoning that allow access to the sunlight for solar energy. RSA 674:2 enables an energy section in the municipal master plan. And RSA 674:17 enables zoning ordinances to encourage and protect solar access, setbacks, vegetation, height, and street orientation, etc. So there's some RSAs that speak specifically to PV solar panels. I can send this link out to, if people want that link emailed to them. So you guys can actually see the presentation I put together, and it calls out all those RSAs and then speaks to them in detail. So, just so we don't forget, George, if you could put an email together to the attorney asking if we don't mention the large wind energy in our zoning, if we're allowing or disallowing by not mentioning it. Because they don't want that to get forgotten about as we move on. You think those RSAs again, you all set?
No, I'm good. 674-17 is interesting. It's the purposes of zoning ordinances. And zoning ordinances shall be designed. And item J is to encourage the installation and use of solar, wind, or other renewable energy systems, and protect access to energy sources by the regulation of orientation of streets, lots, and buildings, establishment of maximum building height, minimum setback requirements, and limits on type, height, and placement of vegetation, and encouragement of the use of solar sky space easements under RSA 477. I'm not sure what that is, but zoning ordinances may establish buffer zones. We can regulate planting and trimming of vegetation, I mean, so it doesn't shade somebody's source, panels, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting that, it says we're required in our zoning to encourage solar, wind, and others.
Correct.
So,
And also include in our master plan, which is the caveat to the next discussion we're gonna have to.
Leads right into it.
That's right. So I think solar can be another thing on our agenda as well to discuss. I think some of these RSAs, what I'll do is I'll send out this link for New Hampshire OEP. And you guys can check out the different RSAs and then follow up on them. There's a bunch of them that they refer to regarding solar, so. And then next meeting we can discuss that, George, if you can put that on the agenda as well. Because we need to know how we want to include that in our zoning and also in our master plan.
Mr. Chairman, did you still want me to contact the attorney concerning the solar panels then?
Not the solar panels, just the wind, large wind energy. Agree with that?
what's that?
We discussed just sending an email out to the attorney to ask her if, by not mentioning large wind energy systems, if we're allowing or disallowing it.
Yeah, we could either send it now or collect, over the next 2 or 3 months, collect together other questions that we might have and send one email, but I don't know. I don't think she's gonna bill us that much. They don't bill as much to answer an email, do they?
She's on the clock.
I think it's a quick answer, so.
Yeah, I think,
Well, she has to do research and you get both for that. 20 minutes, $50.
yeah, go ahead and send that email regarding that. I think we're gonna have a lot more questions once we start getting into master plan and talking about some other stuff. So,
Since we're spending money, should we motion to vote on that, or should just one of us?
Have a motion?
Well, I don't know if we don't.
The chairman has, I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead.
The chairman has discretion as far as contacting the attorney. At least that's what the board has decided in the past.
You could always throw in a motion that he shouldn't, if you want to save the money.
I just don't want to be premature because it's still, it's still money, so. Either way.
Let's vote on it. Let's vote on it. Make a motion. Do you want to make a motion to contact the attorney? I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we send an email to the attorney asking about large wind energy systems, whether by not having it in our zoning, if we're allowing or disallowing. A second?
Second.
Discussion? Rob?
I think I will vote against this motion, not because I don't think we should ask the question, but I think, we can gang it together with like 2 or 3 other questions at some point in the future. I'm not sure that we need an answer now, and if the answer is that they would be allowed, I think a zoning amendment would be very simple to say that they're not allowed. So I don't think it would be a lot of work for us to do, if we got that answer late, I don't think it would be the end of the world, because I think we could craft a 1-sentence amendment that would specifically disallow them. It's not like we need 6 months of work to deal with an unfavorable answer from her.
Okay.
So anyway, but that's just, I'm just one guy, so, but.
And just to add to it, I would think that the attorney should be at the end of the process after we have provided, all the changes that we, as we go through this, we're gonna have more questions, so I just think it should be all kind of at the end of the process before, because this ordinance would have to go to the town anyway.
Right.
So that is when she could, I just think it should be at the end of the process and not.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
I wouldn't wait until, so normally we send the wording that we've got to her for a review. That might be too late in case, let's say we included that question of whether or not large wind energy would be allowed or under our zoning or not. She said, let's just say she says, yeah, it would be allowed. Then we want to address it, but it's now we're in December and we're running out of time. It's like we want to ask the question by, I don't know, October or something, right? Sometime between now and then. But I don't think we're going to wait until December before. But we may have 3 or 4 other questions that we've got. We're trying to draft any other changes we're trying to make. I don't know.
And there's also questions about the solar and the wireless.
Right.
I don't know if they should be all done separately. I'm just saying if she's gonna start researching, it might be easier to get her all at once, that's all.
I think I know my answer. All in favor?
You're already going to vote for your own motion?
No. Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Motion fails. It makes sense to do that. I agree with that.
But I think it's a good idea to have George be
We should get a collection of it.
Yeah, start building a collection of questions.
Yeah.
So that when we can review that list, and when we think it's big enough, ask her to send it off.
So George, you'll put together a list of questions we'll have for her.
Yes.
All right.
But I think George is correct that you have discretion to contact the attorney anytime you think you need to. So, which is why I didn't argue against it in the first place. Or, anyway.
All right, so next on the agenda, we're going to be talking about the master plan. Correct? Yes. Consideration of the process for amending the master plan. This one we'll try to briefly discuss. Has anyone had a chance to look at the other master plans for the other towns that were provided? George sent them an email.
Yes.
Yes, we have one.
We have one of them here. We didn't print out the other one because it was 38 pages worth of, I thought we had a big master plan. So, has anyone had a chance to look at our master plan online?
Yes. say.
It's 34 pages, that it was.
So the Albany plan has been revised. The 2001 is not the current plan.
The Albany one, correct, yeah. This was from a previous email that I had sent.
Yeah, they updated theirs.
Do you know, I don't remember seeing the number of pages on that one, from the revised one.
Got 50.
15?
50, 50.
50, so they went from 8 pages to 50 pages?
I think that's correct.
Wow.
Somebody was getting paid by the page.
Yep. Or someone's a logger. All right, I think the general understanding of our master plan is it's quite lengthy, and some of the discussion we had was trying to see if we can condense some of the master plan, but we don't want to lose the overall intent and the aspect of the master plan. So we had talked about inviting the public as well to review and discuss some areas of the master plan and what we are suggesting for changes from the previous meeting.
I believe we spoke about ideas of just the planning board doing it. We had another idea of having more town involvement in a different way by using visioning sessions and charrettes. I'm trying to think of what's the other one. We mentioned trying to compile a survey to try to see how people would, and we didn't come up with a survey. But there are things that need to be added. I mean, there's no energy, unless I'm missing it, I don't see an energy section in here. And we were just talking about, solar and wind
Correct.
and stuff, so that could be something that could be added. So if we're talking about the process, I guess the whole conversation's got to be about how we are going to get the town or the townspeople to be more involved in putting together a master plan, because looking at the master plan, this looks like a boilerplate, the way it's written. And this is from 2006. So that's a while ago. And there's a whole process behind putting one of these together. The whole process of, creating a vision statement and our vision statement now is a small historic rural New Hampshire farming community committed to improving the quality of life for present and future generations. So we have to figure out how to see, is that acceptable for everyone? Still. And the RSAs that govern this is 674-2. About how we do it.
They were required to have a vision section and a land use section. The rest of the sections are optional.
There was, trying to find, there was another presentation that was put out, I'm trying to remember who it was put out by, about designing the master plan.
OAP has basically several chapters, I think at least one chapter, maybe several chapters of the book, or one of their planning books.
Yeah.
Has a lot of good information about how to approach this. In terms of process, our rules of procedure allows us to either create a committee and it tells us who has to be on the committee, or we can just do it as part of the planning board. I think that we've talked about that. I think we've sort of leaning toward just doing it at our regular meetings for the most part. I think that if there is ever any task, we can always form a committee to deal with that particular task, like putting together survey questions or whatever, something, you know, if there's something specific that we wanted to work outside of the monthly meetings to, we can always do that on an ad hoc basis. And I think that one of the early decisions we should make is, what do we think, what growth projections do we think are reasonable? We're supposed to look out, I don't know how many years, 10 years or however long we're supposed to be looking out. And I think that, because we're trying to figure out how to guide growth and development and deal with it, right? If we think that population is going to be flat, that's very different than thinking population is going to double in the next 20 years, right? So I think we have to start with some assumptions around what kind of growth we think we're dealing with, so we can understand whether we should be thinking, you know, how do we keep things the same, or think about how do we deal with growth without things changing too much, or we want a village center or whatever if we think that we're going to have a lot of growth. Anyway, I think we should, one of the early decisions we have to make is you know, are we looking at how do we maintain what we've got, or how do we deal with problems that are coming from growth? So.
And some of the other master plans that are reviewed over the last month, there are some towns that actually have the growth per year, you know, charted out to show how the town's actually growing. And I think that we could do something pretty easily with that too. I mean, we know how this town's growing, but it's not, I didn't see it in our master plan.
The OEP publishes, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if it's,
That's it. Isn't that the
It's-
growth plan that you came up with?
yeah, so this is from 2015. That's something I guess we started working on master plan in 2015 at some point.
Yeah, it was 2015, wasn't it? Because I had commented to you about it. Oh my word, it's been 2 years. We started talking about it 2 years ago, so.
So, anyway, I'm sure they have updated data, but these are OEP, you know, by town, by county, what their growth projections were. One thing so the growth projections that were used at the time of the 2006 version, they were projecting our growth going like that, and obviously that didn't happen. But so they were projecting by 2020 we're going to be 900 people. By, where are we now? They were projecting we would be 830 people by 2015, and we're nowhere near that, right? So,
That's published in the annual report too.
excuse me?
That data is published in the town's annual report.
Yeah, but the OEP website, every year they do projections,
Right.
some number of years, you know. But I think we should make sure that what they're projecting seems to make sense with what we're seeing as well.
Yes.
Because the 2005 numbers were wacky.
Also, it'd be interesting to see what a DOT report for this corridor is.
In the 2006 version, it says a population increase of 300 people is projected
By 2020.
by 2020.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to be up to 900. What are we at now?
750?
750.
Did go up.
The census was 712, and that was in 10, right? And we did construction.
And now we have ADUs, so that
We've had ADUs for most of that time.
I mean, it's more accepted.
So I did see that Appendix D, we do have the populations listed in here.
Yeah, my guess would be that that's the OEP numbers, that whatever they were published at that time.
Yeah, 2020 says 900 population. So we have some real data that we can post in the new master plan from when we did it, and reevaluate the growth of the town based on what we have for real data.
So the question is, what's gonna be the process? How are we going to decide what process we're going to use? Survey, charrettes? Are we just going to update what we have, or are we gonna rewrite the whole thing? So we'd have to, I don't know what, how are we gonna make that decision? Should we?
Well, I think the easiest thing would be to update what we've got,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure that that's the best thing. So I think what we've got, it was written by somebody from SRPC and with input from people in town, but I don't think that it necessarily reflects exactly what we would have written if we'd written it ourselves.
go ahead.
The RSA state that it just has to be done. It doesn't state that we have to do it. Or does it say that I guess I'm trying to get at who has the authority, like who's
Planning
supposed to
board.
really, okay.
Planning
so-
board has the authority, but
So we have the latitude to go and,
our first duty, according to RSA 674:1, is Roman numeral 1, it shall be the duty of every planning board established under RSA 673:1 to prepare and amend from time to time a master plan to guide the development of the municipality. So it's our first duty.
So does the vision statement deviate from where we are today? I mean, is the population growth and the expectations of the citizens, has that changed in 10 years?
I'm curious what the percentage of farming is done in the town of Brookfield. That's one of the things in the vision statement. Our farming community. It might be worth revisiting the vision.
I think we ought to.
Still meets what we're seeing the town developing as. So I would suggest we make sure, okay, you got something to say?
Well, yeah, just in terms of what the RSA's require of us. RSA 674:3, in preparing, revising, or amending the master plan, the planning board may make surveys and studies, and may review data about the existing conditions, probable growth demands, and best design methods to prevent sprawl growth in the community and the region. The board may also consider the goals, policies, and guidelines of any regional or state plans, as well as those of abutting communities. During the preparation of the various sections of the master plan, the board shall inform the general public, OEP, and regional planning commissions, and solicit public comments regarding the future growth of the municipality in order to involve citizens in the preparation of the master plan in a way which is most appropriate for the municipality. So we can do surveys if we want to, but we have to inform the public, OEP, and regional planning commissions, and solicit public comments. So we can't just do it ourselves in a vacuum. We have to involve the public.
I think you have to make it the town's master plan, you're just orchestrating it.
I think that's well said.
Right.
So we can't decide what the vision should be. Right? We can propose something, or we can, but I think we need to, I think we'd be best serve to get as much feedback as we can on that.
What do you propose a vehicle to do that would be? Survey? Coffee time with the selectmen? Beer and pizza?
Well, I can sum up in Oship's planning board meeting. They're starting the same process. And I'll share with you what they're doing. Basically, they're using your boards and commissions that exist in their town already to give them all input on their own sections. And then they're going to, they created a subcommittee. Now, it's a larger town, so probably, I don't know if we need a subcommittee, but they allow those boards to, you know, create their own idea of, and they would get their own involvement going, and then they would bring it back and compile. That's what they're doing. I mean, I don't know, we're gonna create a survey to say, do you want to talk about the master plan? I don't know how that's gonna work. So that's what they were using it for.
We're having a coffee early in June. Could we discuss with the people at the coffee? See what they think.
Yeah, start somewhere.
Hmm?
You have to start somewhere.
Right,
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
I think it's the first Saturday in June, we have a coffee scheduled.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable with just us sitting here saying the vision of the town is this, because we're not the town.
Can you do a survey about the vision of the town?
That's what I was wondering, if there's any way we could do that. I think, and even the coffee social, I mean, there are many people in town that I'm sure would have a pretty good understanding of what their vision for the town would be that won't be attending the coffee.
I think part of the issue is you have to make them feel like they're part of it, so when it's time to vote on it, it's a yes or no, right? So they gotta get their nose out of the way early in the process, so that you get a yes.
Well, the important thing is, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the important thing is to make sure the RSAs are followed, the public hearings are posted, that we ask for public hearing, ask for public comment, public input, and we went through that process. I mean, I don't know if a town coffee is a public hearing,
Not at all.
so maybe we need to create a public hearing to discuss the, I don't know how to, you know, to proceed that way, because, you know, how are you gonna get everybody involved and understand? You can't have, you know, 100 people in a room trying to figure out a vision statement.
Right.
That's not gonna work.
So, 674:2, Roman numeral 2, letter A. A vision section, this is one of the required sections, a vision section that serves to direct the other sections of the plan. This section shall contain a set of statements which articulate the desires of the citizens affected by the master plan, not only for their locality, but for the region and the whole state. It shall contain a set of guiding principles and priorities to implement that vision. So we need a set of statements which articulate the desires of the citizens.
I guess the question I have is, how do you get those statements from the citizens? Are we required to have a public hearing to discuss it? Are we inviting them to planning board meetings? I mean, there's some people that I think would like to have some input that can't make it to the planning board meetings.
Can you
So,
blank mailings of some sort?
They'll end up in the trash.
Well, maybe, maybe not.
I never follow surveys. Plus, I feel like they're very, like, people, a lot of people have agendas that they would never say to your face, but when it comes in a blank mailing, they'd be like, yeah, let's let businesses be open all along Route 109. And then you get a bunch of responses like that from everyone who lives on 109 who runs a business, and you get 0 responses from everyone else who says, let's just leave it exactly the way it is, you know?
so I've,
I mean, how does a citizen, so I'm just looking at the Albany one and I don't see a lot of similarities between Albany, because if I looked at a home in Albany, I would never buy it. That's not the kind of town I wanna live in. I wanna live in a town like Brookfield, that's quiet, that's pretty, that's simple, that doesn't have a lot of infrastructure, that, you know, I like that. It's nice. But there's certain things I look at, like looking at the Albany plan, like how do I make it known? So, like we pay to the Wakefield Library. I think the Wakefield Library is not that great. I think the Wolfboro Library is a lot better. You know, I know a lot of these paid services are a touchy subject, but how does a townsperson let you know that there's things that they're interested in looking at differently? And these meetings are never well attended, so they never, you know, everything just kind of stays status quo, and you could just leave the town planning at status quo. But I don't know how, as an ordinary citizen, you come and you say, well, can we look at a different strategy with that, you know?
So-
And everyone's gonna have their own opinion. Some people may love the Wakefield Library, some people may, you know, some people hate, you know, don't like other things. Some people wanna run a business in this town, other people don't want any businesses in town, you know?
Well, I think the surveys are tough to get people to answer.
Right,
One strategy that I've seen that works is you put some crazy stuff.
forward, then people show up.
Yeah, then people are all upset, right? They're like, "Who? You want to put a nuclear power station in Brook? Are you crazy?"
Right,
And they have to fill out the other 50 questions as well. And everyone says, "No, we don't want nuclear power here."
right,
But we've got enticed them to answer the other questions as well, maybe,
Right.
right? And to show up and get involved. If we did send out a survey, we don't have to expect that everyone's going to say yes to everything,
Start somewhere.
right? You know, the idea is to not only find out what people want, but find out what they don't want, right? So, I can even imagine the sort of the series of statements part of the vision section being the survey questions, right? Here, think about what, and without having decided whether the answer is gonna be yes or no, but like what would some statements be, and then put them on a survey and let people, answer them. Do they want businesses somewhere in town? Or do they want us to be involved in supporting libraries and such services? I don't know, but I think that, a survey is one way to get a hold of people so they don't have to come in front of the camera and, say something to people's faces. They can,
right.
send it in. It's just really easy for somebody to not send it in, right? So,
We could do an online survey through the town website as potential. And I was on the Conservation Commission in Elliott, Maine, and we did a pedestrian biking survey using an online service. We had 150, of course there was 2,000 residents, but we had 150 responses, which were beneficial to helping us plan, but I mean, that's a start. And it's fairly easy to put together. Just need to have the right questions.
yeah, well, I think we can work on coming up with questions, but if we want to do that. And, maybe it's partly online, partly mailed out,
Yeah.
handed out at coffees and, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, the people who make the decisions are the people that show up.
Yeah.
If they don't answer the surveys, they may be unhappy with what comes out of it, but,
Yeah. I find that, the town website's a good resource for a lot of things. It's probably underutilized by a lot of the citizens. Perhaps, a postcard mailing, advertising the town website, but also having a survey for the master plan, in that may be a way to hook those people who are commuters or are young parents who would not be able to attend a meeting like this. So I think we need to give lots of options as far as getting feedback. A survey would be one method, but the town coffee may be another method. But it's how do you bring that information together and have it well represented? You can't have one way more than the other.
All we gotta do is tell them we're gonna be putting a Dollar General in prior Belknap.
yeah.
Actually, everybody would be here.
I don't think they believe that one.
Yeah, it's okay to put questions on the survey that you think the answer is gonna be a resounding no.
Yeah.
That's how you confirm your assumptions, right? And, having a statement in our vision that says we don't want a Dollar General, that, I think it's a perfectly good part of our vision, is to not.
I mean,
Yeah,
Dave,
kind
you
of.
said something about how much farming do you think really occurs here? Is that an idea that you have about changing something about the town? I mean,
I don't want to change it, but I think there's less farming than what might have been originally decided when we put the vision statement together.
right.
But farming may not be a literal thing, it may be a reference to open space. So you can hay a field, that's farming,
I certainly enjoy my ride home at night, past the open fields,
yeah,
you know,
so,
keeps me here,
right,
does.
yeah, so that has to be, it may not be farming now, maybe open space,
Right.
maybe the more 21st century term.
I think typically you'll find in this town, that, I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I think you'll find that a lot of people move to a town like this because they don't want things to change and they want things to kind of remain similar. So I don't think that Rob, you're very far off with saying that just almost rewriting them, but 10 years later is a very far off mark for most people. You know. There may be a couple of simple little things that some people may have ideas about, but I think in general, when we moved here, the reason we bought the house we bought is because we thought that property was never gonna change. It was always gonna stay that way.
Yeah, I can admit, I read the zoning before we looked at a piece of land here. And
You
that was
did or
one of
did
the
not?
things- I did. That was one of the things that made me want to move here, is I liked that they wanted to keep it the way it was. They liked that rural community. No businesses, no Walmarts, quiet, scenic roads,
I agree.
With
Home business, I'm most glad with that. We don't want to have these gigantic, I drove through a town that I grew up in southern New Hampshire, and I drive through there, I don't even recognize the place. The place I used to drive my bike and horses are all now housing developments and shopping malls. So, I think putting a survey together would be good. I think that we need to come up with what types of questions we would be asking to try to put the feelers out to the community. I do think we need to add the energy section on this as well, so that should be something that we put in our future planning for the master plan.
Well, we don't have to. We may choose if we want to, but we don't have to. It's not required by law.
The
It's
RSA
a good survey question,
right?
Great survey question.
The RSA on the master plan just says vision and land use
Yeah, okay.
are the only ones that are required. We certainly can go above and beyond that.
Now, the only powers I've heard you talk about are wind and solar. Is hydro part of that, or is there any sort of thoughts about hydropower here?
That's highly regulated by the state. So there's, any change of any waterway requires huge permitting. That's not something that I think as a town.
So the state supersedes the town and you don't
You
have to
got
worry about it?
We got it.
Well, our zoning doesn't say anything about it, so does that mean that you can't put in, our zoning doesn't allow you to put in a dam? And,
Yeah, I think,
You would find out pretty quickly if you
Yeah.
put a dam in. It would be from a town person.
no, I understand, but I mean, let's say that I had a stream that I wanted to put a dam and put a power system on. I went to the state and jumped through all of their hoops. Would I be allowed to do that? My reading of our zoning says that I wouldn't be allowed to do that. It's not an allowed use. Unless I can make the argument that it's in the gray area of, a normal accessory, what's the term, customary accessory use to a residence or a farm or something.
but you'd be altering a watershed.
Correct, but
But if I jump through all the state's hoops, right, is just putting in a dam allowed under,
Yeah, but you could put in a simple hydro system without putting in a dam. You
Or
just
would-
need 80-foot drop. I mean, it's not, you can put in a simple one.
I think that's the issue is you geographically, do you have a location in this town where it would be feasible to do that?
No, I've got an 80-foot drop, if that's all I need.
I
So
do too.
I don't have enough water, but especially with the summer water. Yeah,
I'll send my water.
yeah, your water's all where my water's dropping to, so. But I mean, you know, that's the problem with, or advantage, I don't know if it's a problem or advantage of permissive zoning, is that if it's not mentioned, you can't do it. And so, you know, do we want people to be able to put in hydro systems? I don't know. Are they loud? Are they intrusive? Are people gonna see them? I don't know. But
I don't know. Don't have an answer to that one.
I mean, I think Tim is right, that it is a very good survey question, because it will, there's certain people in town who would, it would pique their interest.
they would want to do it or not, or they
No,
want to see it not
it
done?
would be like the Dollar General question.
Absolutely.
It would just pique their interest.
It would be something that, you know, gets them hooked to fill out the rest of it.
The more of those that we have, the more people will get hooked.
Yeah.
You're gonna put the solar panels on Moose Mountain. Oh,
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
sun
We'll
up
get a
there.
lot of
There is water.
Yeah.
Did you read one of the goals in Albany's? It says, protect the individual rights of the citizens of Albany. You gotta love that.
Yeah, that one definitely caught my eye. I like that.
Discourage regulations and restrictions that cause an undue burden on the townspeople.
Yeah, that should be the first, not last, in my opinion, but that's just one man's opinion.
That could be a circuit question.
All right, so I'm gonna get the general understanding of this is we're going to think of some survey questions and send out survey. Is that something that we had?
Well, it's definitely a pretty straightforward way to try to get public feedback. And we can also then figure out, in parallel with that, how we're gonna deliver the survey and try to, whether it's online or a mailing or hand it out at every event that the town has or what.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
One question I've got about surveys is, do we care about trying to prevent people from stuffing the survey box? I could print out 50 copies of the survey, fill them all out and hand them in, right? I mean, there are lots of ways to deal with that, but do we even care? Do we think that's gonna be a problem? Or,
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I think we need to get some questions together and
no, I mean,
get to the point of being able to administer a survey before we worry about that. That seems to be the, I mean,
Well, that's the other thing
The
with
hold up is that we don't have, anything to offer right now.
right, I'm just asking the question is, and maybe it's for, for people to think about is, like your online survey idea is a great idea, but now you can, potentially be getting people from Afghanistan filling in our survey. Do we care about that?
You have to ask a pointed question for them to answer, like zip code, something to authenticate that they know that something about the town to enter as part of the process of them filling it out. That way you can eliminate some of this, people just filling surveys for fun.
I know there's some people out there that think that's
I know.
fun, I understand.
I know, but
Makes you laugh.
I think it's a valid question. I think that I agree with Tim, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think we need to actually have some questions first, and then we'll figure out how we deliver it and avoid fraud, I guess you'd call it,
Well, is the survey's not an actual vote, the survey is
No, it's
just for feedback purposes?
Just feedback.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
it's just polling.
But if we got back 300 surveys and 290 of them say that they want a commercial district, our master plan will say we want a commercial district, and that we should be thinking about how to plan for that, right? It was that one person that submitted
the
hundreds of
survey,
surveys, right? I mean, that's the issue, is that we're gonna, It's not gonna,
I'll be at that meeting.
Yeah.
Saying,
I mean,
thank you.
I don't, the survey's not the end all, survey's to get us pointed in the direction. It may require further discussion with the town to figure out, is this in fact, are we hearing this correctly? We got your feedback, is this exactly what you're saying? And this is what you want? And then, I mean, this is a ongoing process. The survey won't be the end all, it's just a starting point.
Yep. And whether, we could ask for people's names as well. I'm not sure if people want to be anonymous or not, but,
Sure.
zip code is one good way to figure out if they even know where the town is, but
Right.
if we want to ask for people's names, we'll know that we got,
Well, we can
one
always,
from this person's name, right,
Yeah.
or 5.
right, you can always ask for a name and make it an option.
We had a great turnout at the supper over there, right? Anything like that planned for the future, for dinner?
The barbecue?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have one coming up, right?
it was
I
a
don't know
lot.
what the date is on it. though.
August 12th,
12.
I think, 2nd.
Could always if you have one a little bit sooner, I can't do
Yeah,
it. I'll be there.
get a little survey box and some paper.
Yeah, just to start it. Chat, a lot of people coming and going. They go and
Right.
they take it home to all the other people, and they chat.
Right.
I mean, the most important thing is we need to advertise that
That's-
we're doing this,
Right.
so that
Right.
people know it becomes a talking point amongst the community,
Reach out to the people.
and then we can spur interest that way and funnel them into whatever vessel we need to get feedback.
Can we put anything on the town webpage that says we're soliciting people in town for what they feel the vision would be, and have them be able to click a link and be able to type in what their vision would be for the town, or?
We can definitely put it on there. The only thing we have a problem with is finding space on the homepage, that's the only thing. But we can we can put it in the announcement section.
Rich, we also have a place where people are clicking to be added to the town newsletter, or do we keep a record to know? No, we don't.
But the newsletter's going out in 10 days. If you want to put an article in the newsletter, it goes with the tax bill. Tax bills are going out. So
Yeah,
the question is, do you want to put something in the newsletter that's going out with the tax bill?
Yeah, we want our taxes to go down.
yeah, the vision for this town is to have $0 per thousand. 10 days is going out. George, would you have enough time to put something together we can put into the tax bill that says that we're looking for feedback for the town vision, that the planning board's working on the master plan, and we'd like some feedback from members of the town, and we should be seeing a survey, or what do you think, Rob?
Maybe you should start with, it's gonna be on our agenda every meeting for the foreseeable future, right? Encourage people to come to the third Thursday of the month meeting, 6:30,
Now, does this begin the public comment period? If we're going to include it on the agenda and,
I don't know, I don't think so yet, we haven't drafted anything yet. I think once we get something drafted, even if it's, not final, at that point, we should be trying, getting it on the website, asking people for feedback, asking people to, when they come to the meeting, to give us feedback, written or verbal or whatever. And we certainly, once we finalize it, right, I think we're required to have a public hearing before we vote to accept it.
And I don't know if I don't think we have 10 days. Those tax bills are going out. You have no more than a week to get into the administrative assistant, because it's got to get into the newsletter. So, do it quickly, please.
Is that something you could do, George?
Yeah.
Do you want to see a copy of the letter before it gets sent out? If you can email us a copy and we can just review it.
I think it'd be enough for one of us to review it. I mean, if you just want to review it, I think that's fine with me at least. Ed wants a copy too. He wants to review.
Well, I want to issue my opinion, is that I would think that the beginning process of the master plan, from the moment that we tell the townspeople that we're going to begin the process till the end, should be a public comment period. And I was gonna ask, how much does it cost us anything to actually have a public hearing?
Yes.
It's newspaper?
Yes.
And whatever notices have to go out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if we do that, we would only have to do it, twice, once to begin, and we could have a continuance every single plan, this is only my opinion. Planning board, every planning board meeting, we would have a continuance. In the beginning, we start a public comment period, because what I foresee happening is, people are gonna say, well, you should get the, and it says in the RSA's, you should get the broadest amount of people involved. So if we basically have notified the town we're starting a public comment period, we start doing it meeting by meeting on the agenda, people are invited to come in and talk about it, we can gather opinions then. I mean, surveys, I think, are good, but we have an aging population, and even with GovernmentOversite.com, it's difficult to get to the elderly people in town. They don't have internet, they're not gonna have internet, they wanna show up.
Yep.
So I think if we started that, at least we would be following the RSA's and making sure that we are definitely, like, no one in town should ever be able to say that we did not notify that we're working on the master plan, because we notified.
So just to clarify, so if I understand what you're saying, is you wanna have a public hearing at our next meeting and notice it. Public hearing related to master plan, something fairly general.
I do not.
And then, have that public hearing open for some period of time during next month's meeting. And then rather than adjourn that public hearing, close the public hearing, we'd continue it to the next month's planning board meeting. Open it up again for a few minutes or a few hours, depending on how many people show up. Continue it again to the next, so basically only have the cost once, but have official public hearing happening all summer.
Yeah, as long as possible, it'll work around. And I don't know if we should be calling it a public hearing, because I don't know if a public hearing and a public comment period is the same thing. A public hearing is an official term. I don't know if a public comment period is official. Well, apparently it is, because it says it in here. So I don't want to call it a public hearing. Public hearing is when you're getting a bunch of people in to hear something, and then we gather input and then close the public hearing. I don't know the difference between a public hearing and a public comment period. I'm just saying the public comment period should start and continue.
I think by notifying everybody in the tax bill that we're gonna be discussing this, we have public comments that we start the meeting with. And I think by offering the public an invite to come here to the meeting and to be able to give feedback as to what they feel the master plan should be like, and I think that should cover it.
Well, I agree, but the only thing I would add to the putting it in the tax bill is to treat it like a public notice where it goes in the newspaper too, because some people in town, or do they look at have you found it to be that if somebody gets their tax bill, they're looking at it and
I read the newsletter. I know probably a handful of other people that read the newsletter as well that they get in the tax bill.
is a newsletter an official vehicle for, that's why I mentioned that. That's why I'm saying I would rather see it in an official capacity, or the official vehicle for the notification. So we can hear the RSA saying that we're
So,
telling them.
I would think that you'd have at any meeting, you're gonna talk about this section. And you're looking for input from the town on this section to give it focus. And in the next, maybe one or two sections. So if someone has an interest in that section, they might come.
Like the Conservation Commission. They
Yes.
may want to come on certain days to
Yes.
discuss that, or the whole thing they might want
They
to.
could be welcome, but you have to pull them in. So you just say, come on and give us your comments. Well, that's pretty wide open.
That's why I'm saying I'd rather do it in a long span of time and not condense it, because I think word will get around and it'll gather steam and people will start to at least start.
When you talk about the commercial zone, right? Galen hit a pigeon right out of the box. She'll be there.
Mhm.
So when you're talking about specific areas, I think you'll get a draw, because you hit some hot buttons.
And the solar and the wind.
Yes, absolutely.
People are interested in that, the wireless, people are gonna wanna know, that's when we'll find out, you know, has everyone's attitude changed about towers? Do they know what's available? Do they want wireless in town? Are they tired of not having broadband? So, that's just my opinion.
You know, another thought is to think about what sections you're gonna have. So you can tell people over the next 3-4 months, we're gonna be talking about these sections. Think about what you wanna share with the planning board for input, and give them that structure to start with.
Well, we have sections in our current master plan now.
So you can tell the public, so you can use those, right?
What I'm saying is if George is gonna send out a letter,
Yes.
maybe you can include an example to say that these sections are, you wanna shrink it up a little bit? Okay.
I don't think anybody has seen this
That's right. On the
for a
website,
very
right?
long time.
No, I agree with you. I had to dig through the website to find it.
But even if you can find it,
It's a little-
it's hard,
Yeah.
it's not super information rich,
Yeah,
right? It's a lot of fluff.
it seems to be quite redundant in sections, one section to the other. So,
Look, guys, it is 9 o'clock,
past my bedtime.
so we need to vote whether or not we continue this discussion past 9.
Well,
Good.
the next two things are an email that I sent out, which was an answer that the Legislative Services Office had given us. I don't know if that's something that we have to go running over 9 o'clock for.
Okay.
And
So did you get a response to the additional questions that I,
yes,
You did.
the question you were very precise about. They made sure that they wanted to make sure that I conveyed to whoever wrote it that it was very well put. But I did send that to you, and did you send it out?
I don't remember receiving that, honestly. What I sent out previously was something that you sent to Dianne, and I did a mass sending out to the members from that. And that was 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, so.
Okay,
I didn't see an answer to those questions, I don't think.
okay. Well, I'll look and see if I'll send it out again, and then that's why I'm saying that I think we need to go past 9 o'clock.
Okay.
You'll share with the public too, yes? You share the answer with the public?
Oh, I thought I emailed it to George so
With the
he
public.
could give it to us and then we could all talk about it in public.
Public.
Yes, public. I don't wanna,
So was the answer yes or no?
it's after 9 o'clock.
George, can you put that on the agenda for next
Go ahead,
meeting?
email it right now.
If you can send that out to us as well, so we can review that. Just so we're all on the same page, George is going to put some sort of a little blurb in the newsletter so that people know we're working on the master plan. That way at least gives people a heads up.
Sounds good.
Does that work?
It works, but are we going to, is that gonna be the official
No.
beginning of it? Okay.
No, I think you're right. I think we should officially announce it, but I think it gives people a heads up that this is coming, so.
Not going to the website, or just going on the website?
We have a Facebook page too.
Might be able to put something on a
People use
Facebook
that?
page.
We got a Facebook page too.
Might be able to put something on a Facebook page. All right, so the other discussions, we're gonna postpone until next meeting.
I'm sorry, so we've got a Facebook page, why aren't we like advertising every town meeting, town-related meeting on there and stuff on that?
Who has the administrative position for the Facebook page?
Administrative assistant and Brian.
Yeah, we could-
Because we might want to, you know, the day of, or I don't know what their optimal lead time is, but each time we're having a meeting, if we want people to show up, they're more likely to show up if they were reminded about it and what we're talking about. Like you posted our agenda to your Facebook page, right? So,
all somebody has to do, my site is, anybody goes onto it, all you need to do is, the administrative assistant, is you can share whatever's on my Facebook page to anything else. So I'm just saying that if I posted something, we only have one, we have 2 people that can post on Facebook.
I believe that's correct.
Can anyone comment on Facebook?
I
Or does it have to go through the administrator?
don't know. Wow, sorry, I don't know.
Do you know how many members we have?
No. We gotta be careful, right? We've got an official vehicle for posting messages in meetings, and it's not the Facebook page, that's secondary. We gotta make sure we go to the official route first, which is.
2 public places.
Right.
One
Can be the
which
website.
may be the website,
Maybe, that's right.
which I put in legislation to change that, to state that if you're already using your website, it now only has to be in one public place, one of the other can or shall be the website if that's what you're using. Because too many towns were suggestively using, were inconsistently using their website when it was convenient. And the bill's still rolling through the legislature.
So once you start using the website, you have to continue to use it. That will be one of the sites.
Yeah. I mean, that saves you effort, because you go outside, post it on the outside of the building, and then post it on the website, not post it in 3 places.
Because the way the law is written today, you can be flexible.
Exactly, and that's what they do, when it's convenient.
All right, Tim's gotta go home and go to bed, because he's gotta get up in the morning. So, public comments? No public? Member comments?
I'm sure I have something to say, but I can't.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys, for your attention.
Good night. Good night, Andy.
Good night, Tim. Thank you for coming.
And that's a really good move. I like that one on you. Once you start using it, you gotta, because I